Hallo und herzlich willkommen zurück zu einer weiteren Folge Chaos at Noah. Beim letzten Mal hatten wir eine Auseinandersetzung mit Suva, der sich ja am Ende mehr oder weniger selbst gekillt hat durch eine Delusion. Und jetzt sind wir auf dem Weg zum alten Planetarium, wo Nozomi Corporations wohl Noah 2 drin hat. As I made my way through the dark tunnel, I relied on the red glow of my D-sword to see. My steps naturally became quicker and quicker. I'd never walked on subway tracks at all before. Ich finde dieses Rauschen sehr stark, muss ich sagen. As certain as I was that no trains were coming, the mere possibility had me tense enough that I couldn't keep my head from frantically whipping back and forth. It was a minute-long train ride between Shibuya Station and Shinzen Station. The distance between should have been less than a kilometer. Luckily for me, the tunnel in the Inokashira line didn't have too many cave-ins, so making it to Shibuya Station shouldn't have been the worst thing ever. But something was still weighing on me. Kuzupi had warned me about something before we had parted ways.
たくさんのグモグモドロドロっていう意識がね、待ち構えてるのら。コズピー、力になれないけど気をつけてね、たくみさん。
Oh. Stimmt, Kuzupi hat ja angefangen zu reden. Upi, Goopy, Bloopy, Head Consciousnesses. Right. At the very least I imagined I wasn't gonna like those. I was starting to have second thoughts. Fear crept up on me, and I started to feel incredibly alone. Making my way through a pitch-black tunnel all by myself, a tunnel in which something horrifying was apparently waiting for me. How could I not lose my nerve? Whispers in the back of my mind urged me to leave the tunnel this instant, to find a way to Shibuya Station on the surface. But I didn't have that kind of time to lose. So in order to destroy any remaining fear I had, I thought of Rimi's smiling face. I thrusted my D-sword forward to illuminate the tunnel ahead of me. Problem was, its red glow only made my feelings of anxiety and foreboding even worse. Suddenly something felt off. I felt like I had caught a glimpse of something strange enough to make my gaze dart all around to try and find it. 10 meters ahead of me on the tracks, a small shadow was shutting out, one that hadn't been there a second ago. I squinted. Actually, it wasn't a shadow at all. Standing at about 20 centimeters tall, it was a Seiras figure. Why would it be in a place like this? I was hit with a sense of whiplash. It was way too out of place. I was in a dim underground tunnel, one for train tracks that took people between stations. The general public didn't tend to go in the tunnels themselves, especially this deep. I was right in the center of them. And yet the figurine was there anyway. And it was the post-awakening version 2, my absolute favorite, so her chest was pretty busted up. Wait a second. Was that my figure? The one I dropped during the chaos at Scramble Crossing yesterday? If it was, then how the hell had she ended up here? She was standing perfectly upright too, with that bewitching smile of hers aimed straight at me.
セイラが
タッキーにはそう見えてるんだ。
I heard a voice. The voice I always deluded was talking inside my head, Seiras' voice.
なんでもいいけどさ。
It happened in less than a second, faster than I could even blink. Seiras, who should have been just a small figure, had instantly transformed into a life-sized model. Then her smooth, silky, sexy body began to bend and twist just like a real person's. Her hair rustled around and her huge tits jiggled. Was this a delusion?
ねえタッキー、遊ぼうよ。
I heard another voice behind me, wiping my head around in shock. I saw another life-size Seiras standing there.
リミッチのことなんてほっといてさ。
But it didn't end there. To my left and to my right. The amount of Seiras were slowly multiplying. They cascaded out from the darkness. Just the sight alone sent a slight chill down my spine. The number of Seiras had to have been at least in the triple digits now. Okay, das Bild ist schon irgendwie sehr geil. Das Bild ist schon irgendwie ziemlich cool. 100 Seiras crowded around me and spoke in unison. Laughing gleefully, one of the Seiras in front of me charged at me, then her slender arm swung her colossal metal bat. The impact was definitely real. My D-sword managed to take the brunt of the blow. It had been way too heavy of a strike. My hand started spasming before going numb. It all hurt like hell. That was when I realized. It was all really happening. It wasn't just some delusion. It was reality. They were real brute beings. And every single one of them was out for blood.
遊んでくれないとぶっ飛ばしちゃうぞ。
僕の嫁なら道を開けて。
やだ。
それなら。
I would have to brute force my way through. I retightened my grip on my D-sword. The fiery emblem on my D-sword hilt began to burn. Even more red light began to emanate from the blade. I slashed the sword, tearing right through my waifu. The blade was weightless, smooth in how it handled. It drew whatever trajectory I wished to. The blade bit into her shoulder before running through her body in its entirety. There had not been a shred of resistance when it came to rending her flesh and bones. It had hardly taken any strength from me at all. Seiras' glamorous body split in half and an angle. As her entrails piled out, she collapsed on the spot. Even her organs had been perfectly reproduced. They glittered and shone with a pink gleam. I averted my eyes. I was cutting my favorite character with my own two hands. As an otaku, this was the hardest thing I had ever had to do. But still, I couldn't give up here.
強い強い。さすがタッキー。そんなタッキーが好き。もっと気持ちよくして。
What the
遊ぼう
fuck?
よ。めちゃくちゃにしてあげる。楽しい楽しい。
What the heck? Suddenly each and every one of the Seiras started speaking independently of one another. The flood of voices threatened to swallow me whole. I have to quit thinking of them as Seira. That was what I had to tell myself, and so in order to keep moving forward, I swung my sword at the Seiras blocking my path. Rending the darkness, with a single horizontal strike, a red beam blazed across the tunnel. The four Seiras standing next to each other were instantly turned into corpses. Another one grabbed me from behind. She wrapped her arms around my neck in a chokehold. Her large supple boobs pressed against my back. Another Seira tried to mount my leg, and I quickly punctured her in the face with my D-sword. A cleanly cut molten hole formed where her smile had used to be. It was hard to breathe. My neck was being constricted. I was on the verge of suffocating. Another metal bat was coming right at me. I managed to writhe around enough to change position, and now my back was facing it. I felt Seira's body shudder, and her grip on my neck weakened. I shook her off my back, then I wrapped around and swiped with my D-sword. 3 pairs of Seiras' legs came at me. My next strike would sever them at the sides. The 3 of them plunged into the ground in perfect harmony. I stepped on top of their backs. Seiras started winding up her metal bed, and I swung my sword down at her. Her metal bed met with my D-sword, only for me to carve straight through it, and straight through the top of her head. No, my D-sword wasn't carving things. More than it would have been more accurate to say it evaporated things that crossed with its trajectory. No matter how soft the object, no matter how solid the object, no matter how cold the object, no matter how hot the object. My blade instantaneously boiled and burned away anything it came into contact with, severing it from its source. These enemy characters who all had the same face, who were all calling my name in unison, who continued to attack me just for the sake of it. It made my hair stand on end. To try and rile myself up, I let out a huge scream. Then, aiming for the Seiras right in front of me, I plunged my sword straight into her chest. Seiras grabbed onto my D-sword, and almost the exact same second her hands evaporated. I lost all words. Blood began to climb up from the depths of my body. Chills went down my back, my entire body stiffened. This wasn't Seiras. Seiras would never have turned against me. I heard the sound of several of my ribs being pulverized. I even felt the bones in my right arm creak, letting out a dull sound as it did. The blow resounded within my body, and then the sheer impact sent me flying. I smashed into a wall. My head collided directly with it. My vision warped and wavered. She rapidly swung her metal bat down on top of me. I was getting blood-gowned. My left arm was minced from the elbow down. Even the concrete in the wall was dented from the blow. Unangenehm. Another metal bat swung straight into my leg. All strength left my right hand. The slightest movement caused a severe pain to scream out in my brain. But I ignored it. I swung my D-sword. I cleanly severed the oncoming metal bat, but the pain of doing so forced a groan from my mouth. I came within arm reach of the Seiras in front of me, impaled her torso with my D-sword, and tore my way through her. Her blood splattered my hands. Despite being just an enemy character, her blood was incredibly warm. My mind went numb. Pain was all that ruled me now. I wanted to lock it all away, but I couldn't. As long as this pain endured, I would never be able to. Copious amounts of clotted blood gushed out from my flattened left hand, and it wasn't easy trying to hold on to the D-sword in my right either. The pain seemed to reverberate from my very bones, pain so bad I felt like I was about to pass out. I realized my entire body was soaked with sweat. The droplets stung at my eyes. My vision was hazy. More and more Seiras approached from in front of me. The sound of their cheerful laughter reverberated deep within my ears, making my very eardrums vibrate. With my injuries, I doubted I would live for more than a few hours. That thought had suddenly come to me, but it didn't really matter. I was just a delusion anyway. A being that would blink out of existence just as quickly as it had blinked in. In the grand scheme of things, my injuries didn't really matter. I just needed to save Remy. I just needed to destroy Noah too. If this body could grant that, then I would gladly give it all away. So,
一応飽きてよ。
一緒にいようよ。
a metal bat came down on me again. I figured I would be able to avoid it, but the fatigue and pain slowed my reaction considerably. I was struck right in the temple. I could feel its enormous spikes tearing into my skull. The world shook, my vision went black. Things became even darker than they already had been, and I could no longer see anything at all. I tumbled over. As I tumbled, my mind went to my right hand. It was exploding with pain, but I was also able to reaffirm that my D-sword was still there. I swung out my flattened left hand in an attempt to regain my footing. An exposed bone collided with the ground. An impact akin to an electric shock ran through my entire body, causing me to black out for a second, but I regained consciousness soon after. My vision came back. I started to race back up. The soles of my feet caught hold of the ground. Using the centrifugal force I had been blown away with, I charged into the heart of Seiras and swung my right hand. My bones creaked. Freshly spilled blood burst out from the Seiras. The stench of blood refused to leave my nostrils. Was it my blood, Seiras' blood? Who even knew? It all blended together. All I knew was that I was covered in blood and that the coat of red staining me had made my vision go blurry. I kept on carving into them. Who even knew just how many I had cut down at that point? When would it end? In my mind it was as if she was multiplying infinitely. So I clung to my right hand. I swung both her and my D-sword around. But she wouldn't let go. Instead she bent my arm backward and in a way it wasn't meant to go. My joint came out of its socket. All strength left my arm. My D-sword hit the ground. Nausea walled up in my stomach. I coughed and sputtered violently. The taste of blood spread through my mouth. I was pretty sure my shattered ribs were puncturing my internal organs. Any and every kind of pain was eating away at my body. I felt like I was going to go insane. But I was holding out hope. I couldn't help but hold out hope. I wanted to be set free, but I knew very well how impossible it was. Somehow it was more wishful thinking than anything. With a big grin on her face, Sarah peered at my face, and I drove my foot into her jaw as hard as I could. I forcibly channeled more strength into my right arm. All sensation in it was going numb. It felt as if my nerves were burning to a crisp. My entire body was boiling. And now, the pain in my bones was rippling not just through my arm, but through my entire body. I was on the verge of shattering into pieces. Then I heard something that sounded like the growl of a beast. For a moment I wondered whose voice it was, only to realize it was my own. The fingers on my right hand faintly shifted. I grabbed my D-sword and conjured a delusion. I pictured it being bound by a cord, and it instantly became real. The sword was secured to my hand with a cord. I needed to move, to get to where he was, beyond this darkness. I sputtered out the blood that had gathered in my mouth. I was surrounded by heaps of Seiras, corpses lying on the ground. Other Seiras kicked past them on the way to me, producing ripples in the puddles of blood. I slowly shook my hand. I gritted my teeth. The very next second, every single Seira morphed into 2D. The ones who were standing became life-size cardboard cutouts. The corpses lying on the ground became covers for body pillows. They had all returned home, back to the realm of 2D. Not a single one of them moved anymore. In something of a moment of silence for the girls, I briefly hung my head over the wreckage. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that the gory, blood-stained Seira body pillow covers definitely wouldn't sell well. I was on the brink of passing out, but I managed to stave it off by biting my lip hard. And then I started walking through the dark tunnel once again. I ended up at a dilapidated building near Shibuya Station's east entrance. The surrounding scenery was dotted with partly or entirely collapsed buildings, leaving the building here as the sole intact survivor. On it was the dome of a rooftop planetarium that had closed down some years back. Wheezing my lungs out, I had ascended the deserted stairway to the top floor. I had made my way through the unattended lobby into the planetarium before I took a breather at the gargantuan device that had jumped into my sight. It was Noah 2, in all its majesty, surrounded by a chilly air robbing me of my warmth. A piece of art stood beside Noah 2.
Rimi.
Rimi, affixed to the art piece, slowly raised her head at my voice. Our eyes met. Her eyes shut open.
どうして
Oh.
どうして
君を助けに
Oh. Her eyes began to swim.
バカだよ
She shook her head sadly.
そんなキスだらけになってそんな無茶して待っててって言ったのになんで
Because I fell in love with you. I am in love with you, Rimi. But I couldn't say that out loud. I couldn't say anything heroic like I'm here to save you because I'm in love with you. Not with how I was. Not with me covered in blood and completely flattened arm. My current state was far from Prince Charming as humanly possible. If I said something like that now, I would probably look creepy as I. That would put me closer to a stalker than anything, really. If I spilled my guts to her in some speech that didn't let her get a word in, it would have just put her way off. She was going to live, and I was going to die. Having some dead man work and convey all his feelings on a whim would have left a horrible taste in her mouth. So I bottled it all in.
意味にこれを返したくて
My right hand was still weak. It was the hand I had been using to hold my dessert. Desperately forcing my fingers to move, I reached inside my jacket pocket and pulled out a handkerchief. Oh. It was colored a gentle vermilion. Whether that was its original hue or due to my blood staining it, I didn't know. Rimi had given it to me. Though its flower armor had long since expired, that handkerchief was one of the several precious memories she had given me.
僕は君をここから助け出してノア2を壊してこのハンカチを返すんだ
That was all I was capable of doing, and if I managed to achieve it all, I could die with no regrets. Besides, there wasn't much else I could do. In my mind, every sense of mine had gone numb a long time ago. I imagined that the reason for that was because the pain was so severe, my brain had no choice but to start blocking the sensations transmitted by whatever nerves were responsible. I could barely move. My arm continued to bleed. My vision was blurry. I was incredibly cold. I had the feeling that if I wasn't careful, I would lose consciousness right then and there.
君は実に勇敢ですね。
A tall man emerged from behind Noah 2, nourishing Genichi. Facing me, he clapped sarcastically with no clear expression on his
し
face.
かし、致命的なことが一つあります。行動原理が感情に根ざしているということです。それは野蛮人のすることだ。
I had no idea what he was getting at. It took everything I had just to bear with the pain, so aside from Mimi, I didn't have any brain power left to try and comprehend what anyone was saying.
逃げて
小を犠牲にして大の利益を守る。それを悪だと思いますか？私はそうは思いません。このままでは人類はいずれ滅び去る。人の欲望によってです。あまりにも醜い心、あまりに利己的な欲望の洪水。人の社会はすでに破綻し、腐り落ちようとしています。誰もが己のことしか考えず、その結果殺し合い、奪い合っています。君もギガロマニアックスとして覚醒したのなら見たはずですよ。人の心の本質を。私は幼い頃に覚醒したため、もう何十年という間それを見てきた。300人委員会は人類の自滅を阻止するためという大義名分のもと、世界人間牧場計画を推し進めてきました。けれどそれも所詮彼らのエゴを満たすものでしかない。私が目指すのはそんなものではありません。悟ったのですよ。この腐った世界を再生するためには、社会のシステムを変えるのではなく、世界中すべての人間の心を変える必要があるのだと。そのためのプロジェクトノアです。ノア2があれば世界中すべての人間から負の妄想を消し去り、清廉な心へと漂白できます。争いは消え、世界に永遠の平和を与えることができます。君も誰かに蔑まれることもなくなるでしょう。
Finally, his novel-length monologue came to a close. My body was on the verge of collapse, but I desperately planted my feet. At least I'd gotten a bit of break. That was the only reason I was still standing. Also ich muss sagen, einerseits kann ich schon nachvollziehen, was er sagt. Andererseits, dann ist das, dann fehlt halt auch der freie Wille des Menschen. Also die Möglichkeit des Menschen, das zu tun, was er tun möchte, was uns im Grunde ausmacht. Selbst Entscheidungen zu treffen, selbst Dinge zu tun. Aber naja, ich würde sagen, an dem Punkt beende ich jetzt diese Folge. Keine Ahnung, ob... Es kann sein, dass das nächste Folge schon die letzte Folge wird. Kann sein, dass die vorletzte Folge wird. Ich werde sehen. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.